All right, back with another tier rankings here. A little bit later than I have been doing them. I have been doing them on Mondays, but obviously I was a little busy. So getting it out when I had an opportunity to finally watch enough film to feel like I can talk about these teams. With all the new information that came out this past week, there was plenty. The Cincinnati Bengals had new information come out. They lost another game, are 5-4. I believe are currently not in the playoff spot, but they're still Super Bowl contenders. They are. They just are. They have Joe Burrow. They had some injuries. I think that game to me kind of shows why you can't dig yourself in that kind of hole to start the season to begin with, because these games are going to happen. You are going to run into a hot quarterback and have this kind of thing happen. So you don't want to put yourself in that position to where it affects you, but I still think that their ceiling is, they're showing the Super Bowl. It just is. So I'm still putting them there. Giants are bad. That goes without saying. Tommy DeVito is fun, but maybe not someone who's going to quarterback your team to many victories. 49ers, last week I believe I finally put them, or I guess probably 2 weeks ago, I finally put them into for sure playoffs. However, tier, but after what they did to the Jaguars, they're back in Super Bowl contenders. Win a month without winning a football game, right? So you have to be a little bit concerned about that if you're a 49ers fan. But looking like the 49ers again, I'm willing to say that was kind of an anomaly. You're going to have rough stretches. So big win for them there. These Saints, I still think the Saints are mid. I mean, there's things to like about New Orleans. There is. And I think I put them into maybe playoffs tier before. But it's just like they can't get it all together. The Derek Carr thing has been way too inconsistent, which, he has at times looked like the, Derek Carr of old, good Derek Carr, which people act like this has been Derek Carr his whole career. It hasn't. He has had better years than this, much better years than this, but he's just not having a great year right now, and he needs to step it up. There's other issues, of course, coaching being maybe the biggest one, but, if Carr steps it up, that feels like the most logical way for them to jump back up a tier is if Carr starts playing better. The Bears are still, I would say, a just bad team. Maybe with Fields, they can get into the plucky but bad tier, but for now, that's where I have them. And the Packers, I think I'm going to put them in the plucky but bad tier as well. Analytics like them. It says there is talent on this roster. They're not winning football games right now. And a big part of it, I think, is they still just have the lack of receiving talent, and Jordan Love isn't playing great. And when you have those two things factoring in, it doesn't matter how good some of the other parts of this team are, and I'm not saying it's dominant there either, but just maybe better than what the record should be. It doesn't matter, though, because you need the important pieces. So the Cardinals they're in the plucky but bad tier, for sure. With Kyler here, that bumps them up a tier. Maybe could even bump them up multiple tiers. Kyler looked really good, so that's fun to see. The Ravens, yeah, I can't put them. I put them in Super Bowl contenders last week, and I can't. They're for sure playoffs. However, there is a however now, and it's they keep dropping these stupid games. This is 3 times now they've lost a game they should have won. They've been the best. They're the one team in football that has been the best team every single game they've played. Like that, they're the one team who can say that. But they keep dropping these stupid games. Maybe Kansas City can say that as well. But if they just could take care of business, they're undefeated, but the fact that they're not taking care of business is concerning enough for me to drop them down a tier. Dallas, okay, let's do it. Finally, I'll be aboard the Dallas Cowboys train. Why not? Which makes no sense to do it this week because they blew out the terrible Giants. But I don't know. They're blowing out everybody. At this point, that sucks. Like, they're great at that kind of thing. Yes, they've had their bad moments, but okay, you lost to Arizona. You probably didn't think that they were going to give you much of a fight, and you were wrong. You lost to Philadelphia in a close game. I mean, that came down to the wire against the Eagles. I don't know. I may be just being late on this one a little bit, but I think the more and more I think about it, it's what do I want out of a Cowboys? Dak Prescott's playing the best quarterback, I've seen him play maybe ever. And I think that's probably the main reason why I'm putting them in the contenders tier now is we're seeing Prescott look like he can be someone who can, I always kind of say, if you're going to, realistically, they're probably going to have to play 4 playoff games. I think the 1 seed's going to be tough to get. Not impossible, but tough. If they're going to go and win 4 playoff games against good teams, you're going to need Prescott probably to win you 1 or 2 of those games at the very least. kind of looking like he could do it right now. He really is. So, yeah, Super Bowl contenders. The Bills are still maybe playoffs. I put them here for a while now. I feel pretty good about my take. I made my analytical power rankings, and I kind of came around on them a little bit and said, well, analytics like them. That's good. But, like, we do this with the Bills every year. Analytics always love the Bills. Like, clearly, they're an exception to the rule at this point. Just like the Steelers are an exception to the rule in terms of analytics tend to hate them, but they keep winning. Like, there's going to be exceptions to that, and I think that the Bills are probably an exception. So, yeah, maybe playoffs feels reasonable to me. The Chargers are next on this list. I still think they're mid. I mean, great offense, terrible defense. That's mid. That's how that works, in my opinion. The Broncos, I kind of think are also mid. I do. I think that I might have even put them here last week. I don't remember. But, the offense is starting to play better. The defense is now, completely figured it out, which is great to see if you're a Broncos fan with, how good it was last season, how bad it was to start this season. It's figuring itself out. Russell Wilson it's funny, he's been good all year. It's just that they were losing early on, so people were blaming him for the losses because that were stupid football fans who can't think, don't realize nuance is a thing. So now that he's started to win games, playing just as good as he's played all year, now he's starting to get the credit that he deserves. I still don't know what you can do with this. I still don't know what you can do with the 13th best quarterback getting paid, fourth most in football or whatever it is. I think it's I'm not sure if it's fourth most, but, getting that big quarterback contract money. I don't know if you can win a Super Bowl that way, but you can at least be not a bad team that way. So the Lions, I still think they're for sure playoffs. However, ... The however is the defense. And, Jared Goff played great this year. I still do have some slight concerns about, is this the real Jared Goff or is this just, is this a mirage? But, for now, that's definitely, there's so much good for this team. They're for sure going to be in the playoffs and maybe they're a dark horse Super Bowl contender. But for now, can't quite put them there. The Chiefs are obviously Super Bowl contenders. You have Patrick Mahomes, you're a Super Bowl contender. Pretty much. Not definitely, but pretty much. And they have plenty of other stuff too. Atlanta, are they mid or are they plucky but bad at this point is honestly a fair question to ask. I'll still say mid. They've had enough wins on the season. I'm going to give them one more week in mid. You have one more week, Atlanta. If you screw this up, you're dropping to plucky but bad. The Arthur Smith thing, it just isn't working. It just isn't working. It is what it is. The Eagles, best record in football. They're still Super Bowl contenders. That kind of feels obvious. Really good stuff by them. The Browns are a team that I'll still say maybe playoffs. Again, I've gone through a full 360 at this point with the Cleveland Browns, where at first, and yes, I mean 360, not 180. First, I was like, wow, the Browns, they don't have quarterback play. So I can't put them in a higher tier because they don't have quarterback play. I don't care how good everything else is. You need a quarterback to win you a big game if you're going to be for sure a playoff team. They don't have that. Maybe playoffs is the best they can do. All of a sudden, Deshaun Watson comes along and he looks fine. He didn't look great, I thought, last week, but he looked fine. He was able to make things happen at the end when they needed him to make things happen. I think the 14 for 14 is a bit misleading. I mean, he was fine, and there were missed passes that got negated due to penalty and stuff like that. But still, he ran the offense well enough that gave you hope for the future, that maybe he can grow on that as he gets healthier. Turns out he's got further away from being healthier. He is out for the season now. So with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, to me, maybe playoffs almost feels a little generous. The Texans are also maybe playoffs. I mean, really good offensive weapons. They've been inconsistent this season. I mean, it's funny. These past 2 weeks, we've been going crazy over how good they were, but their offense got completely shut down by the Panthers, and they lost to Bryce Young's Panthers. Like, there's been inconsistencies here. The full body of work is not ideal, but right now, they're not a team you want to play because they're hot right now. Next up, I have the Indianapolis Colts, who are just finding a way to win. It's kind of funny. Once Anthony Richardson got hurt, everyone kind of just forgot about the Colts and said, okay, I guess, season's over, whatever. We'll be interested in watching you next year. But they kind of looked around and said, hey, we can still win games. We're still playing good defense, running the football well. Like, I don't think that there's that big of a difference between what they've done and what the Browns have done and what the Steelers have done. I mean, Steelers are a bit more of a unique case, but like, they have a mindset. They're going with that mindset. They're well coached. Like, I don't know. You could maybe talk me into bumping them up a tier. I feel like they've been kind of underrated so far to start this year. Next up, we have the Rams. I can't remember if I put them in the plucky but bad tier or the mid tier last week, but I'm going to keep them in the. I'm going to plucky but bad feels right for me. There's plenty to like about them. Stafford, Nakua, and Cooper Kupp are going to have you a chance, give you a chance to win mostly any game. But other than that, Seattle win. They've been a plucky but bad team this year. That's just kind of where they've been at. The Dolphins they're for sure playoffs. However, ... Obviously, the lack of beating, a big, winning against sort of one of the contending teams that has become a narrative. Even though I think it's a bit overblown, they came very close to beating the Chiefs, and probably should have beat the Chiefs, in the international games. So I'm not as freaking out over that as other people are, but they've still lost some games there and they've still made mistakes. So I think the ceiling of this team is still Super Bowl contenders, but there is a however there, so I have to drop them a tier. The Vikings, are the Vikings a mid team or are they a maybe playoff team? They certainly are going to be a playoff team, but how do I feel about them? I guess I'll throw them in maybe playoffs, right? Their offense is clicking well. Flores has completely changed that defense. It's crazy that he didn't even get a defensive coordinator job last year. I don't know what was going on there, because he's been great. That's been maybe the biggest coaching hire of this offseason was the Brian Flores one for the Vikings. And Dobbs is coming along and playing good football. Now, listen, we've seen this with Dobbs, right? He's, in Arizona, he'd play one great game and then play one bad game. And so you have to hold your breath a little bit when he comes in and plays two great games right away for the Vikings. Is this just, kind of how he's playing right now? It's very possible. But as of right now, there's enough there. Due to the NFC and kind of the weakness of, there's kind of 6 good teams in the NFC right now. So the Vikings being the 7th, works. So that's kind of how I view it. And maybe 6 is generous because there's not really a team in the NFC South that I would say is good. So there's 5 good NFC teams. One's going to win the South and get in that way, and then one's going to get the 7 wild card. And the Vikings are, if they have Cousins, they're more than a good team. But without him, if Dobbs is this guy, if Dobbs plays the way he played these past 2 weeks, they're a good team. But again, you know how much I harp on quarterback play, which is why I'm a little cautious with them. But I'll still put them in this tier due to the other things that they have. The Patriots here are just bad. The Jets are plucky but bad. Their defense is good, but there's not a lot to say about them. Patriots. To talk about them for a brief second. Yeah, Mac Jones had a terrible throw. That whole game was just a disaster. Their offense is completely inept. Both those two teams, their defense is trying to keep it in it. At least the Jets have a good enough defense to do that on a lot of weeks, so you have that going for you. The Panthers are currently the worst record in football, and they don't have their first overall draft pick. They're a bad team. The Steelers are, I'm going to put them in maybe playoffs. The Steelers, I kind of had this epiphany this week of them and the Browns are the same team. Everyone's giving credit to the Browns and saying, how did the Steelers keep doing this? They're basically the exact same team. The Browns run the ball better, but other than that, there's not a lot of differences between those two teams. The Steelers, they're well coached. They play good defense. They have guys who can make splash plays defensively, and I do think a big part of their strategy is they, have a great pass rush, which frustrates quarterbacks and gets them to make mistakes. I think that's a big part of their strategy. I don't know if it's a strategy that can consistently get you deep runs in the playoffs, but it'll get you to the playoffs. It can get you to the playoffs, and I think very well might in the NFC there. So Seattle, I don't know, kind of a weird team, but I still feel like for sure playoffs, however. There's still a lot to like. The receiving core is really good. Defense, secondary has played very well, all those young players, once they've kind of fully gotten into their groove. Geno Smith's been a little inconsistent, so I don't think I can put him in the Super Bowl contenders tier, but yeah, for sure playoffs feels fair. The Buccaneers, I think they've earned a right to be mid again, right? We have 3 NFC South teams in the mid tier. I think I'd put them in the plucky but bad tier last week, but Mayfield has played good football. Mayfield, for the most part, that decision has worked out for Tampa Bay. He's played well. You have, Mike Evans, he's had a great year, and we all talk about the consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. In a couple of weeks, he's probably going to get there, barring an injury. So, knock on wood, all that stuff. The defense, though, kind of showed that maybe last week was a bit of a mirage, and that's not who they really are, as, the constantly blitzing Will Levis seems to be the right strategy. So once you figured, Todd Bowles did that, Will Levis couldn't really handle the blitz, and Todd Bowles just did that all game. He just spammed one play for the most part, and Tennessee had no answer. So good job by Todd Bowles. Is a great defensive coordinator, great defensive mind. Had a bad week. He's going to have bad moments. That's coaching defense in the NFL. Even if I was very hard on him at the time, he deserved to be. He's deserved criticism for his entire tenure. But good job here. Got to give him credit. So they're still mid. There's still issues with this team. They're way too inconsistent. I mean, all that stuff. But definitely could make the playoffs, only a half game out. The Raiders are also mid. I mean, hey, you're 500 here. The Aiden O'Connell thing's kind of worked. I was kind of saying, okay, I get it. You're trying to get a draft pick. No, that's not the case at all. They're trying to win, and that's why they made that move. I thought he's looked good these past couple of weeks, and I do think Antonio Pierce has a chance at this head coaching job. I do. I think the Raiders regret going with McDaniels over Rich Bisaccia when they had the chance to kind of build off of that playoff run. I think if the Raiders get close to the playoffs, and especially if they make it, I think there's a chance they could keep Pierce as the main guy. Titans, I'll still keep them in the plucky but bad tier, and maybe that's just because they are well coached. They do find ways to stay in certain games that they shouldn't stay in. The defense seemingly should be good, although I don't know if it's played as well as it should have played. Maybe losing Kevin Byard has been a pretty negative impact with them, which makes sense. But I think the real concern and why I'm considering even just bad is I feel like everyone has to know now that if you just blitz this team, they have no answers. And I don't know if it's Will Levis's fault or the fact that they just can't block. And so giving everyone a one-on-one matchup is a disaster. But the reality is, if you blitz the Tennessee Titans, I don't know how they win from that. So maybe just throw it up to Hopkins. Tampa Bay did have a corner who could kind of hold Hopkins in check. Maybe other teams don't have that, but that's real concerning if you're a Titans fan. You can still double Hopkins and blitz if you want. So, some concerning things there for the Titans, who 3-6 are kind of dead at this point anyway. Washington they're a mid team. I've been putting them in mid for a while. They feel like obviously they are, mid. That just kind of, I don't know. It feels right. And then Jacksonville to end it. I still think they're for sure playoffs, however. They cover very well. Trevor Lawrence is playing good football. There are some issues for this team. There are. While I wouldn't say that Calvin Ridley has come in and done nothing for them, I would say that he's been a bit of a disappointment. I would say that I think they were hoping for more when they made that trade heading into this year. The offensive line still has some real issues, and I still think they could use another pass rusher opposite Josh Allen, even though Trayvon Walker, again, his wins look great, and he's not an invaluable player to have on the roster. I just think you could have, on third downs, I want someone else kind of out there who can really make something happen, kind of like how they had Arden Key last year, who I thought was a real nice number 3 pass rusher for them who could get significant snaps. So there's some concerns, but there's some really good stuff too. The coverage is really good. Like I said, I think Lawrence is having a good year. So yeah, those are my tier rankings. I'm sure Cowboys fans will be very happy to see me put them in the Super Bowl contenders tier. Don't screw it up, Cowboys. Don't screw it up. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.